Hello, I'm Nikki Spears, author of The Hand Hug, and I can't wait to share this book with you today. How many of you sometimes wake up with worrisome thoughts? Well, I know I do, and Miss Baylor, the main character in the book, is going to teach us how we can transform those negative thoughts so that we can have a more positive day, which can lead to a more positive life. So before we dive into this book, we're gonna get ready as if we're diving into a swimming pool. So I want you to put your hands up just like this, and we're gonna count down from 10 to 0, and then we're gonna get ready to splash in, except the only thing is we're not splashing into a pool, we're gonna splash into the hand hug, okay? Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right. The Hand Hug by Nikki Spears. Ring, ring. Baylor awoke suddenly at the sound of her alarm clock. She had stayed up late the night before, worrying about her first day at her new school. She felt sleepy and groggy. As Baylor brushed her teeth, she noticed worry bubbles hovering above her head. These bubbles seemed to appear whenever she felt frightened or nervous. Today, the bubbles were dark and made her feel gloomy. She worried whether or not the kids at her new school would like her. And the more she worried, the more other worrisome thoughts popped into her head. What do you think those worry bubbles are saying? I want you to pause 1 minute and discuss. Okay, so what were some of the things you came up with? This is what I wrote in the book. One of her worry bubbles says, I hope people will like me. And the other one says, oh no, who will I sit with at lunch? More worry bubbles appeared over breakfast. They grew bigger and darker like a thunderstorm, blocking the sunshine from her day. Baylor was so troubled that she didn't even notice when her mom said, good morning. Suddenly, the school bus pulled up outside. Baylor grabbed her backpack, kissed her mom on the cheek, and she ran out the door. Baylor thought if she ran fast enough, she could outrun the worry bubbles. But the bubbles moved so fast that they kept up with her. Pause 30 seconds. What do you think her worry bubbles are saying now? What is Baylor saying to herself? Good morning, Miss Baylor. Welcome to Sunshine Public Schools, said the bus driver as Baylor boarded the bus. Baylor was so nervous she didn't even notice the bus driver's warm welcome. While the other children laughed and talked to one another, Baylor sat alone, so there was plenty of room for her large worry bubbles to settle down beside her. During math class, Baylor doodled quietly, trying to ignore her worry bubbles while Miss Thomas introduced the lesson of the day. Baylor, Miss Thomas said suddenly. Baylor jumped at the sound of her name. Only then did she notice that all the students had left for their next class. Baylor, can I see you for a moment? Miss Thomas asked. Baylor walked over to Miss Thomas's desk, trying to avoid making eye contact. Miss Thomas reached out her hands and invited Baylor to place her hands gently inside her own. She did just like this. As she stared into Baylor's eyes, she asked, "Are you worried, Baylor?" Baylor was shocked because no one had noticed her worry bubbles the entire day. How could her teacher see them? As Baylor's hands lay gently in Miss Thomas's, the worry bubbles slowly began to melt away. Miss Thomas softly squeezed Baylor's hands and asked, "Do you feel that?" "Yes," Baylor nodded. A refreshing feeling of peace filled her entire body and a sweet smile came over her face. "This is a hand hug," Miss Thomas explained as she continued to embrace Baylor's hands. Miss Thomas's eyes sparkled like diamonds. Baylor could see and feel the warmth and kindness extending from both their hands. "A hand hug?" Baylor asked curiously. Hand hugs bring your mind back into the present moment and all the worry bubbles fade away. My teacher used to give me hand hugs whenever I was worried. "I like hand hugs," Baylor said with a smile. The hand hug felt so comforting that Baylor didn't want it to end. "I sometimes have worry bubbles myself," Miss Thomas added. "We all do, Baylor." "You do?" Baylor asked, a little surprised. Her teacher seemed so happy, Baylor couldn't imagine her worrying about anything. "Baylor, our minds are like computers filled with thousands of thoughts. Some of our thoughts are bad, like a computer virus. We tell ourselves things that are simply not true, like, I'll never be able to do this, or I shouldn't have done that. You can learn to talk back to these pesky thoughts. Whenever I get worried, I ask myself these questions," Miss Thomas said, pointing to a bright yellow card taped to her computer. Baylor stared at the questions and imagined that she was looking straight at her worry bubbles and asking the questions out loud. Does this thought make me feel good? Is this thought true? Can I look at this person or situation in a different way? Fill your mind, your computer system, with positive thoughts, and positive things will flow into your mind, Miss Thomas said. She slowly let go of Baylor's hands. Would you like to take a hand hug with you? She asked. Baylor nodded curiously, wondering how could she possibly take her teacher's hands with her. Let's think about that for a moment. Her teacher asked if she would like to take a hand hug. Do you think her teacher is going to give her her hands to take home with her? What do you think? Miss Thomas took out a notebook from her desk drawer. On the cover, the words, "My hand hugs," were written across the top. This little notebook is a reminder of all the good things in my life, Baylor. Whenever I get worried, I draw a hand hug and write down all the things I'm grateful for inside. You should try it. Miss Thomas pulled out an empty notebook and Baylor quickly traced her first hand hug. "This is what I want you to do," said Miss Thomas. "For the rest of the day, pay close attention to people and things that make you feel good. Then write them down inside your hand hug. Make a habit of doing this every day and look at the hand hug every time those pesky worry bubbles appear. Would you like to try?" "Yes, I would," Baylor said with excitement. "Baylor, your thoughts are not a part of you unless you give them permission to come in," Miss Thomas added. "Once you allow them in, they will tell you how you should feel. So remember, your thoughts take place in your head, but your feelings are in your heart." When Baylor hopped on the bus in the afternoon, the bus driver greeted her. "Hello, Miss Baylor. I hope you had a great first day," he said as he opened the doors to allow the students to get on. "I have a special seat for my new passenger. Why don't you sit in the VIP seat behind me, Baylor?" "VIP stands for very important passenger," he explained. "You successfully completed your first day of school. I think that's pretty important." Once Baylor was seated, she grabbed her notebook and wrote two things inside her hand hug: "My bus driver," and "sitting in the VIP seat on the bus." Melissa, a girl from her class, sat next to her. They laughed and chatted. Baylor kept her notebook in her lap, waiting for her next happy moment. As the bus pulled up to Melissa Street, they said their goodbyes, and Baylor quickly wrote, "Making new friends," inside her hand hug. When Baylor got off the bus near her house, she felt peaceful and relaxed, very different from how she felt in the morning. There were no longer any worry bubbles hovering above her head. Suddenly, a beautiful butterfly fluttered by. Baylor had never seen such vibrant colors before. She chased the butterfly as it danced in the air and flew around her, always just a little out of reach. Later, Baylor wrote, "Beautiful butterflies," inside her hand hug. So now Baylor has written at least 4 things inside her hand hug. Do you remember what they are? By the end of the day, Baylor's first hand hug was completely full. She had added Mom, Dad, my dogs, my parents, Mom's homemade banana bread, hand hugs, Miss Thomas, and music. Baylor couldn't believe how many good things had happened already. Her worry bubbles had faded away. They popped up from time to time, but when they did, she grabbed her hand hug and was reminded of all the good things in her life. The next day, Baylor couldn't wait to start her day. She was ready to write down all the things that made her happy inside her hand hug. At breakfast, Baylor thanked her mom for the oatmeal she made. "May I add strawberries and bananas?" she asked. "That's a great idea," said her mom. "I think I'll do the same." For the first time in weeks, Baylor's mom sat down at the table to have breakfast with her. Baylor couldn't wait to add this special moment to her hand hug. When Baylor boarded the school bus, the bus driver smiled and said, "Good morning. How are you, Miss Baylor?" "I feel great," Baylor said with a smile. As Baylor looked for an empty seat, she noticed a little girl sitting alone with a worried look on her face. The little girl's shoulders slumped over as she stared down at the floor. Baylor was very familiar with that look because it was the same look she had worn the day before. Baylor decided to sit next to the little girl. "Hello, I'm Baylor. What's your name?" The little girl slowly looked up and glanced into Baylor's eyes. Without saying a word, Baylor extended her hands and invited the little girl to place her hands in her own. "Do you feel that?" Baylor asked. That's a hand hug. So now, guys, it's your turn. I want you to create your own hand hug. You're going to trace your hand, and today you're going to look for all the positive things, all the good things happening around you. And you can either draw a picture inside of your hand hug, or you can write some words. But whatever you do, always look for those positive things around you, because the more you find those things, the more they will flow into your life. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my new book, The Hand Hug.